There wasn't an announcement. No raised voices, no official memo. Just a silence so clean it felt engineered. I clicked into the launch deck for EmpathIQ, the platform I had spent 6 years of my life building from scratch, and I couldn't find my name. Not on the slides, not in the architecture credits, not even in the release notes I wrote myself. At first I thought it was a mistake. Then I saw her name, Cleo Marin, lead architect, vision behind EmpathIQ. A woman who had joined the team 8 months ago, not a line of code written, not a single late night spent debugging when the system kept collapsing under real-time strain. But there she was, face forward, perfect lighting, quote ready. And there I wasn't. It's strange what your body does when your name disappears. Mine didn't panic, didn't sweat, didn't rage. It just stilled. Like something in me had already been waiting for this. Like part of me knew. I minimized the deck, checked the metadata. The doc had been finalized by Max. Of course, Max Hunt, CTO, my mentor, my collaborator, my co-conspirator on too many whiteboards and 3 a.m. revisions. The man who once told me, "Your mind works 5 years ahead of this industry," apparently just not 5 minutes ahead of his decision to erase me. I left the meeting early, no one noticed. I walked past the glowing EmpathIQ sign they had just installed in the lobby. Tagline underneath, "Designed for empathy. Built for scale." That was my phrase, verbatim. Taken from a UX memo I'd written 4 years ago, after a failed beta taught us that humans don't trust what doesn't reflect them back. I stood there reading my own words, carved into metal, credited to no one. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel proud. I felt robbed, but not like someone had broken in, more like I'd left the door wide open. Let me be clear, I'm not naive. I knew how the system worked, the other system. The one that rewards charisma over contribution, optics over ownership. I'd just always believed I could outrun it by being indispensable, by knowing the product deeper than anyone else, by doing the work no one else wanted, by staying late, showing up, and never asking for credit as long as the thing worked. It did work, until they figured out how to make it work without me. Or at least, appear like it did. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by notebooks and backup drives. I pulled up V1.2 of the original logic tree. There in the lower right corner of the first sketch, my initials, ED written in pencil. So faint now I had to squint. I'd drawn that during a 42-hour sprint with Max in a borrowed co-working space. We were broke, burning out, and obsessed. He joked that we were inventing digital empathy, and I told him that was dumb marketing. Then I made it work. Back then, it wasn't about power. It was about precision. We were solving something no one else saw. That human behavior online is full of patterns if you knew where to look. So I built the engine to look. Now they were selling it like it had always existed, like Cleo just walked in and waved it into life. I opened our old Slack archive, searched for my name in the product channel. Nothing in the last month, then the last 2 months, then the last 4. It wasn't just this launch. They'd been phasing me out for a while, silently, efficiently, with strategy. The same way I'd designed our system to track emotional disengagement in users, they'd used the same principles on me. Ghosting by design. I opened a blank doc, typed 1 line. They didn't just steal what I built, they rewrote the story around it. And they used me to do it. Then I sat there, staring at the sentence. I wasn't ready to post it, not yet. Because this wasn't a story about being erased. It was a story about how I helped them do it. It didn't always feel like this. There was a time when I was proud, not in the way that glows in meetings, but the kind that keeps you grounded. The kind you feel when something finally works the way it's supposed to, and you know it's because you stayed up 3 extra nights when no one asked you to. Back then, it was just me and Max. No press, no Cleo, no funding decks with emotional AI buzzwords. Just 2 people in a borrowed lab trying to teach a machine to understand human friction. I still remember the first time we got the model to predict tone escalation the moment before someone online switches from passive to aggressive. We high-fived like children. Max called it the empathy moment. I called it a first draft, but something in me softened that night because he looked at me like he genuinely saw what I brought. And for a while he did. He deferred to me on architecture, pushed my name in R&D reports, told early hires she built this. I just helped, and I believed him. Then things grew. We got seed funding, hired fast, launched faster. That's when the slow split began. I stopped attending investor calls Max said I didn't need to. I pulled my name off the blog posts, didn't want it to look self-promotional. I let Max represent the company at conferences. He wore suits better than I did. Every small decision felt noble. Like I was protecting the product from ego. Like I was being a real builder, not one of them. The talkers, the posturers, the ones who tweeted more than they tested. Then came Iris. I interviewed her myself. She was raw, brilliant, sharp as glass. And when she joined, I saw flashes of who I used to be before I taught myself to be quiet. She questioned everything, including me. A few months into her role, she asked me bluntly, "Why aren't you listed as co-inventor on the system IP filing?" I blinked. "Because Max filed it. It was faster. But you wrote the original logic model." "Yeah, but I didn't care about the paperwork." She paused. Then she said something I still can't forget. "You don't get to be erased and noble at the same time." At first I laughed. She was young. She didn't understand. But her words started to stick, like sand in my throat. Because deep down, I knew I had been choosing purity over protection, thinking if I just kept my head down and my code clean, the system would reward merit. But systems don't reward merit. They reward narrative. And I had given mine away, one silent decision at a time. Max didn't steal from me, not at first. He just stepped into the vacuum I left behind. Every time I said, "You can take the stage," he did. Every time I waved off credit, he added his name. Every time I said, "I just want the product to succeed," he agreed and took ownership of its success. There's a kind of theft that doesn't involve lying. It's just convenient forgetting, and I made it convenient. Iris began pulling back. Not rudely, just less engaged. She stopped tagging me in system questions, started logging issues directly with Max. I confronted her once quietly. "Have I done something to lose your trust?" She shrugged. "No, you just don't seem interested in fighting for the work." It stung because it was true. I'd stopped defending it. Not because I didn't believe in it, but because I didn't believe I was allowed to make it mine anymore. Then Cleo arrived, introduced as head of innovation. First week in, she asked for a walkthrough of the system. I gave it, top to bottom. At the end, she said, "Wow, this is incredible." Max wasn't kidding about that this system was engineered with heart and built for longevity. She smiled. I nodded, and I felt something in my chest fold inward just a little. Because those were my words, from a memo Max once said was too soft. Now it was her tagline. Still, I didn't push back. Not when she started being looped into client calls. Not when she began being quoted in product write-ups. Not when someone called her the soul of the system and Max didn't correct them. Because I kept thinking, "It's fine, Elena. Let them have the spotlight. You'll always have the substance." But even substance gets forgotten if no one remembers who planted the seed. I thought I was being ethical. Turns out I was just being easy to replace. It started with an error message, not a big one, just a permissions denial. One line of red text at the bottom of a dashboard I built myself. "Access denied. You no longer have viewing rights to this module." I refreshed. Same result. That module. It was the predictive emotion map, the literal spine of empath IQ. I was the one who wrote it, trained it, named it. Now I couldn't even open it. I walked into Max's office without knocking. He was sipping espresso and editing a deck like nothing was collapsing. "You changed my access." He didn't look surprised, didn't even blink. "We're consolidating dashboards. You'll still be looped into summaries." "I don't need summaries. I need the source." He set his cup down slowly. "Elena, it's not personal. This is about security and clarity of roles." "Whose roles?" Because mine's been shifting so gradually, I had to read a footnote to figure out I was being cut out. He sighed like I was being dramatic. "Look, there's a lot happening right now. The board wants more alignment. Cleo's helping organize messaging." "Cleo doesn't know what the system does, Max. She knows how to sell what it does. That's what we need. I stared at him, and for the first time I didn't see a mentor. I saw a man who had chosen clarity over complexity because clarity was easier to fund. I didn't build EmpathIQ to be sold. I built it to understand people. And now people understand it, thanks to you. Isn't that enough? I walked out before I said something I couldn't pull back, but in my head, something had already split. When I got back to my desk, Iris was waiting. She looked, not angry, not smug, just resigned. You lost access too, huh? I didn't answer. Welcome to the archive section. She tapped her screen. They clipped 3 of my modules last week. Said I was over-indexing on legacy logic. I sat down, quietly. It's not about modules, I said. It's about control. And I gave it to them. She leaned forward. Okay, so what now? You going to keep letting them restructure you out of existence? I met her gaze. What do you want me to do? Iris, burn it down. Leak the logs, tweet, and pray. Someone gives a damn. She didn't flinch. I want you to act like someone who built something irreplaceable. And stop behaving like they did you a favor, letting you sit at the table. That landed harder than it should have, because she wasn't wrong. And it wasn't the first time someone had told me. I just never been in enough pain to really hear it. The next morning, I came in 2 hours early. Not for strategy, not for war, just to take inventory of what they still hadn't locked away. I pulled a chair into the war room, plugged in my personal drive, cloned every schema variant I'd authored back when the system still ran on my logic. Then I archived all UX notes Clio had rebranded, every copy, with original timestamps, not to leak, to document. Because if they were going to erase me from the system, they'd better be ready to break the whole damn thing trying. By lunch, Max had noticed. He walked by the glass room, paused, our eyes met. He raised one brow, amused, like always. I didn't blink. He kept walking. At 3:12 p.m., I got a Slack ping. Clio. Hey, noticed you pulled some archived schema. All good, just wanted to check in. I didn't respond, because I wasn't checking in anymore. That night, Iris texted me, if you're ready, I have something you need to see. We met at her place. No laptops, just an HDMI cable and a projector she'd set up in her living room. She plugged in a flash drive. On the screen, a sandbox version of EmpathIQ Cleaner Leaner, stripped of every layer of corporate fluff Max and Clio had added. It looked like home. She paused it on a dashboard I hadn't seen in years. I started this the night they published that feature without your name on it. You rebuilt the core, rewrote it, trained it, tracked what parts still had your signature. Most of it did. I looked at her. Why, because someday I knew you'd either be gone or you'd wake up. And if it was the second, I didn't want you to have to start from zero. I sat with that for a long time, not because I didn't believe her, but because a part of me, the part they hadn't quite killed, was still terrified that maybe starting from zero was all I deserved. You realize if we move forward with this, I said we'll have to do it clean. No leaks, no drama. We build, we document, we defend, no fire, just facts. She nodded. I didn't save this to scream. I saved it to prove what they tried to bury still lives. We called it Remind, not as a statement, as a function. Because all we wanted was simple to remind the world what the work had meant before it was optimized for press releases. The first prototype was clean, no jargon, no founder quotes, just a dashboard, a heartbeat, and the truth. This is how the system was always meant to feel. We didn't pitch, we didn't launch, we invited, quietly. 3 people, all early testers of EmpathIQ, people I trusted, people who'd called me after Clio's TEDx talk and said something feels off. They tested, they saw, and they asked the same thing almost in sync. Where has this version been? I didn't answer. Because I wasn't selling, I was remembering. Iris ran ops. I handled back end. We built in the evenings between the margins of a job I was still technically employed in, but no longer emotionally part of. Meanwhile, at NorthPath, things were twitching. Investor updates began to tighten. Clio canceled 2 speaking engagements. Max locked 4 repo channels, then quietly reopened them. After 2 engineers accidentally submitted ticket requests to the wrong branch. Everyone was nervous. But no one knew why yet. Because the leak didn't come from us. It came from the silence. That's the thing about control when you've built it on a mission. Even stillness sounds like revolt. I didn't expect the first contact to come from Cleo. She messaged me late, past midnight. Hey, can we talk sometime? I think there are things we both know that aren't being said. I didn't answer right away. Not because I wanted to be cruel, but because I didn't know which version of me she was addressing. The one she rebranded or the one she was starting to realize hadn't vanished. We met in a cafe near the office, neutral territory. She was early, lipstick slightly smudged, hands tighter around the mug than necessary. You're building something. It wasn't a question. I nodded once. It's not a revenge product, Cleo. It's a restoration. She exhaled. You were never the kind of person who'd blow things up. I smiled. You're right. I'd rather make it impossible for them to ignore what they tried to erase. She stared down into her coffee. Do you hate me? No, but I think you knew I was being written out, and you didn't stop it. I didn't have the power. You had the mic. She didn't argue, just nodded, slowly. For what it's worth, I always knew it wasn't really my system. Then why stand on top of it? Because I wanted to survive long enough to build something of my own. That landed, because for the first time, I didn't just see her as a polished imposter. I saw someone who was afraid, just like I'd been. Only difference, she learned to climb the narrative. I tried to stand behind it, and both of us lost something. We didn't shake hands, but we parted with a truce. Neither of us spoke aloud. This ends without press, without lawsuits, but not without consequences. I returned to the office the next day and found my name had been removed from the internal org chart. No memo, no explanation, just a blank space. On paper, I was still employed, but digitally, I had already been ghosted. Iris texted me one word, expected. I replied, documented. By Friday, the first Remind invite-only cohort hit 150 users. Feedback flooded in. No drama, no virality, just clarity. This is what EmpathIQ was supposed to feel like. I didn't realize how noisy the product had become. The old version understood us better. Meanwhile, Max sent out a company-wide note. We are consolidating proprietary elements to strengthen the EmpathIQ platform. Please avoid external architecture duplication. Innovation comes from within. Translation: we know someone's rebuilding our system, and we're scared it's better. But he was already too late. Because Remind wasn't just a system, it was a statement, a quiet one, without press, without announcements. But the kind of quiet that changes air pressure, the kind that tells you something has shifted, and no one's coming to warn you. The invitation came as a surprise, a speaker spot at the annual Ethics in Applied AI Summit. Not a panel, not a workshop, a keynote. 30 minutes, solo stage, the topic, the ethics of attribution in emerging systems. They didn't know, or maybe they did. Either way, I said yes. I wrote the talk in silence. No brainstorms, no whiteboards. Just me, one screen, and every log I had ever archived. I wasn't going to call anyone out, not by name. I didn't need to. Because if you build the foundation right, you don't have to scream when it cracks. All you have to do is point. The conference hall was colder than I expected. Modern, clean, full of eyes that had seen too many decks and too few consequences. I stepped onto the stage without slides, just a black screen behind me. For the first full minute, I said nothing. Let them shift, breathe, get uncomfortable. Then I began. What makes a system ethical isn't just what it does, it's who's allowed to exist inside its memory. Slide 1 appeared. A diagram, the original EmpathIQ schema, my version. Hand-sketched, dated, timestamps visible. I continued, this was the map, version 0.2. Trained on language not for profit, but for reflection. Slide 2, Cleo's public-facing schema, the one used in her TEDx talk. Same shape, same logic structure, just with new labels, glossed edges, and no trace of origin. Some systems get improved, others get smoothed out for consumption. Slide 3. Side-by-side of tone prediction logs, Remind versus EmpathIQ v3.1. The newer system flagged passive anger as low emotional engagement. Mine flagged it as pre-burnout signaling. That silence in the room, it cracked. A few heads turned, a few phones lifted, no one breathed. When we talk about innovation, I said we talk about what's possible, but not always about what's traceable. Slide 4. A block of annotated code, one variable name ellipses weight. A joke between me and Max from year one, still present, in Empath IQ, even now. If you're going to rebrand someone's work, it helps to change the variable names. Someone in the back exhaled, audibly. I looked up, eyes everywhere now, not shocked, alert. I'm not here to accuse, I'm here to remind. The final slide appeared. A single sentence. Integrity is not what you protect in court, it's what you choose to carry forward when no one's watching. I stepped back, no applause, not yet. Then someone stood, then another, then the room rose not like a celebration, like a reckoning. I walked off stage into a hallway full of silence and notification pings. Iris was already waiting. She said nothing, just handed me her phone. One message from Cleo. Tell her, I didn't know it would get this far. I looked at Iris. Do we respond? She shook her head. We build. That night, Remind's waitlist doubled, then tripled. Not because we went viral, but because people felt the difference between what was built for scale and what was built for understanding. And once you feel that, you don't go back. 3 days after the conference, I received 6 LinkedIn messages that started with, "Hi Elena, we've been following your journey with admiration," and 4 that began with, "We believe there's a way to rebuild trust together." All from investors, not new ones, old ones, the same ones who clapped when Max introduced Clio as the future of ethical AI. I ignored them, not out of pride, but because I didn't need what they were offering, because now I understood something they didn't. Rebuilding trust isn't about branding, it's about withholding access until someone learns how to earn it. Meanwhile, inside, NorthPath silence fractured. First came the questions, then the delays. Then a press email from a mid-tier tech outlet with a subject line no exec wants to see, rewriting empathy questions around attribution in Empath IQ's core system. The article didn't accuse, it just asked, and embedded 3 lines of code side by side. One from the public build, one from my original sandbox, one from Clio's version. Guess which 2 matched exactly? Max released a statement, smooth, measured, written by someone who had fought too many media fires. We celebrate every contributor in our innovation journey. Empath IQ is the result of many voices, and we remain committed to transparency. Translation. We hope no one digs deeper, but they did, because the thing about systems built on omission is once you expose one shadow, everyone starts bringing out their flashlights. A former team lead anonymous leaked a thread of internal emails. One from Max dated 6 months prior. Subject line, narrative consolidation plan, do not forward. In it, Max proposed removing attribution tags on early system files to avoid confusion. He wrote, the tech is what matters, not who shaped the first layer. Let's unify forward-facing names to avoid dilution of message. The email hit Twitter, then Reddit, then Medium. The post was titled, Tech Doesn't Just Forget Women. It archives them. It racked up 80,000 shares in 48 hours. I didn't share it, didn't retweet, didn't comment. Because this wasn't my battle to win anymore. It was theirs to uncover. Max reached out the following Monday. Formal email, no greeting, you've made your point. Let's discuss a licensing deal for the Remind system. We're willing to compensate fairly. I read it 3 times, then deleted it. Because licensing assumes ownership. And ownership assumes we're still in the same story. We weren't. Clio never reached out again. But I saw she pulled her TEDx talk from the conference site. No post, no apology, just disappeared. And in a strange way, I respected that more than any PR spin. She knew. She stepped back. And maybe that was the cleanest choice she ever made. By the end of the month, Remind had onboarded 5 new organizational clients, including one that had once called Empath IQ our cornerstone partner. Their message was short. We're moving toward clarity. So were we. A friend forwarded me a photo Max leaving the NorthPath office. Cardboard box, no security escort, just him, walking. I stared at the image for a while, not with satisfaction, not even relief, just stillness. Because when power falls quietly, it doesn't shatter, it settles. That same week, I got invited to speak at a university. Not about code, about narrative control in technology. The invite ended with "We believe your story reframes what building really means." I sat with that line for a long time, because once I thought building meant staying quiet, staying useful, staying safe. Now I knew better. Building means choosing what will remain when you're no longer in the room, and making damn sure your name can't be sanded off it. We didn't launch a company. We didn't cut a ribbon. Didn't post a mission statement on LinkedIn. Didn't pitch investors with shiny words like disruptive or next gen. We just built a place. We called it Second Author. It wasn't a platform, not a product. It was a network, a private space, invite only, strictly for builders who knew what it meant to be brilliant and sidelined, to be essential and unnamed, to be written into the first line of code and deleted in the press release. The tagline was simple: create, document, defend. Before they name it for you. Iris handled infrastructure. I handled narrative integrity. Every tool we offered was built around one question: how do you ensure the thing you make can't forget you? We weren't interested in clout. We were interested in traceability, version history, ownership tags, legal literacy for creators who'd never had time to read their own contracts. We taught attribution strategy, built frameworks for collective authorship, trained junior devs to build with a backup, not in case something failed, but in case someone got replaced. Because we knew the risk isn't always the loss of product, it's the loss of proof. 6 months in, we received a letter from a woman in Belgium, mid-level data scientist. She wrote, "I used your protocol after my lead, tried to pitch my prototype as his own. I had receipts, I had language, I didn't just stay, I got promoted." That message hit harder than any feature article ever could. We never went viral, and that was intentional. We didn't want to be famous. We wanted to be impossible to edit out. One morning, I was sitting at our new office, a quiet, plant-filled place, with no slogans on the walls when a delivery arrived, no sender listed. Inside a book, old dog-eared, Invisible Women in Data History. Tucked inside was a handwritten note. I used to be the footnote. Now I'm the framework. I smiled. Didn't need to guess who it was. Max never tried to make peace. He faded. Last I heard, he joined an advisory board for a wellness startup. Fitting, I guess. Cleo I saw once, from across a conference room. She nodded. I nodded back. No war, no grudge. Just the mutual recognition of people who played the same system in opposite directions and made it out breathing. The last thing I added to the remind system was small, not visible to users, just a single line in the codebase footer, written by many, traced by all, born from silence, not buried in it. Some people build systems to win. Others build them so they can never be removed from the story again. I used to think I needed to be in the credits. Now I build things that don't work without me. Not because I crave ownership, but because I understand. Now power isn't just who names the system. It's who can prove they existed in the room long after the names are wiped away. And that's something no one gets to rewrite again.